the engagement workshop itself. We're going to learn about what's on the card here and the information that it entails. We do have an engagement guide on the tables. We do have a couple more copies as well. It's 20 pages or so, lots of background information. It is front and back. There should be one on each table. So if you'd like more, we do have a couple more copies around the room as well. Oh, perfect. Thank you very much. Hello. Yay. Okay, perfect. Perfect. So now we have microphone. Thank you so much. All right. So yes, the first hour, 10 to 11, we'll do the workshop here. And for the folks who are here in person, you'll have a chance to walk through the exhibit between 11 to 12. Timing can vary a little bit, but we'll definitely take a quick break and then we'll walk over there once we're done with the engagement training itself. A few other logistic things as well. Post meeting, if you have any questions about the engagement guide, the materials, and anything relating, please, of course, feel free to contact our development, the team that created the Living Large Dinosaur Engagement. That's the title. I will be gone all of next week, so if you have any questions, please feel free to contact Jen and or volunteers at calacademy.org. So that it goes to all of us and we can then answer your questions.
With in the subject line, if you can just put Dino questions, and that way it will be easy for them to find and corral.
Yes, definitely. I think this particular engagement, we've had the most interest so far. We have 82 people RSVP for this engagement, both in person and online. So a very, very large group. So anything that you can do to help us streamline the questions process. Hopefully, a lot of your questions will be able to be addressed here. But if not, definitely please reach out to us online. Perfect. Okay, and with that, I do want to introduce our dinosaur engagement team. We have three wonderful folks who put in a lot of time and effort in making this engagement possible. We have Karen Buse. And we have Kelley. And we have Terry Esling. So thank you three very, very much for putting this together. It's definitely a big lift, and not the least of which is one of our very large dinosaurs. So as you will get to see for those in person. All right, with that, I do want to pass the microphone over to Karen to get us started, and we'll go through the engagement guide. So there's a lot of us here in the room today. I would appreciate it if you can keep your voices down as well, so that folks here and online can listen to the information. Thank you, Karen.
Good morning, everyone. After reading the engagement, you probably wondered, like, why this three-part thing? So we were tasked with several objectives when we designed this. So one was to complement the exhibit while it was actually happening. So obviously including something about sauropods. And Anne came up with the idea of, well, you know, Amenchosaurus is not from here. Let's pick a US sauropod. So Camarasaurus or Camarasaurus. Don't know which is actually correct, but so we picked that dinosaur, which was from the Morrison Formation, which you read about. And then it was also to be able to have a life after the exhibit. So that's why there's quite a bit of information about dinosaurs and sauropods in general, in addition to Camarasaurus. And then it was to tie into the academy. So we were thinking, well, Anne again, our big ideas person, came up with the idea of comparing, oh, you know, what's bigger than the dinosaurs? Well, the blue whale. So that's how it got to be in three parts. And of course, you can combine those parts if you want in any way that you see fit, or do them separately, or, you know, however, whatever feels good to you. A couple of disclaimers. We have not seen the exhibit, nor have we seen any of the text. So while we watched the videos that you all watched, we did our best to find accurate information, but who knows what we'll find in there today when we read the text. So I'm sure you'll have questions, not only about content, but also if you find any corrections in the manual spelling, because I'm notorious at being able to outwit spell check. Or grammar or anything like that, or you have a question about like, this did not make sense, what you just wrote. So just again, send it to Dino Questions, and we'll hopefully send out a big list of amendments to that kind of thing. And so Terry and Anne and myself are each going to take one of the three parts today. So Terry's going to start out with Chimerosaurs and Sauropods, and with Morrison formation and plant/fossils, and Anne's going to do comparison of Chimerosaurus and blue whales. So with that, off we go.
So good morning to all to our folks at home. And we're all here excited about the world's largest dinosaurs. They would happen to fall into the family of sauropods. Basically, sauropods share one branch of the dinosaur family tree. We share it along with carnivores. You know, we think of sauropods as Brachiosaurus, Camarasaurus, or Apatosaurus. I'll correct that one. But we share it with the carnivores, Allosaurus, Tyrannosaurus, and thanks to Steven Spielberg, there are popular velociraptors. But again, now the sauropods, we found fossils of them across all 7 continents. How did they get to Antarctica? Well, at the time of that, the landmass was still all connected and there was no ice cap. So we find them across the entire globe, and then we find them in floodplains, semi-arid areas. Foot tracks have shown that. And we've even shown that they can come together sometimes in small groups. We're not sure that they would be herd-like. And even the fact that these foot tracks could show the migration from semi-arid areas to wetter areas, that's kind of up for discussion. We're not quite sure of that. When we think of sauropods, we think of the world's largest dinosaurs, but not all of them were huge. If we start with Magiosaurus, the dwarf in the group, coming in at about 20 feet head to tail and only weighing about 2,000 pounds one time. Sauropods as a general lived from the Jurassic to the Cretaceous period. Roughly 200 million sauropods was vertebrae that had cavities in them. And in these cavities were like air sacs. They were not only a part of the respiratory system, but they allowed the neck to be lightweight without sacrificing any strength. Sauropods, depending on species, had anywhere from maybe 12 to 19 vertebrae, unlike the 7 in our neck. As far as diet and feeding, I will leave diet to Karen, but their feeding, they fed in 2 different ways. There were those that would strip the leaves off a tree or a bush, as opposed to those who simply took the branch off the tree or the bush. In that aspect, sauropods had 2 different kinds of teeth. Those that maybe stripped the leaves off a branch or a limb had more peg-like teeth, as opposed to those who took the whole branch off but had more spade-like teeth. These teeth would be replaced over the course of the dinosaur's life, depending on how they wore out. They'd have anywhere from 3 to 5 backup teeth that would fall into place as an individual tooth would wear out or fall out. They did not all happen at the same time. Of those dinosaurs that lived between 200 million years ago and 65 million years ago, I want to bring up our favorite son, the Camarasaurus. We find him here in North America. He is the most common fossilized dinosaur found in an area called the Morrison Formation, a geologic formation that roughly runs from southern Canada down through many of the western states. The Camarasaurus lived, like other sauropods, in floodplains and semi-arid areas. Their size was about mid-size for sauropods. We heard that the Magiosaurus was 20 feet from head to tail, but sauropods grew over the period of time toward the end of the Cretaceous period, where they reached their peak in size. Titanosaurs ranged up to 130 feet head to tail and coming in at around 87 tons, a little different than the Magiosaurus. The Camarasaurus came in around mid-range, around 30 feet head to tail and around 47 tons. Habitat, like we say, was similar to other sauropods, floodlands and dry areas. They happened to have spade-like teeth because they were browsers or reached more or less pulling off the entire twig or branch. Now, this model of a sauropod head is about quarter scale. So you can imagine we'd need a box about yay by yay by yay to fit an entire head. But again, we look at the structure of the skull, we see lightweight bones, we see open areas, and they had a large nasal area, which allowed them, like some other dinosaurs, it is thought to use their sense of smell to find their food source. Lifespans of sauropods ranged anywhere from 40 years to around 70 or 80 years. The lifespan of the Camarasaurus is thought to be around 40 years. Now, as far as development, adult sauropod females would lay anywhere from, say, 10 to 20 eggs once or twice a year. Then they'd walk away and leave the eggs on their own. These hatchlings were what we call precocial. They knew how to walk and had to learn how to take care of themselves right away. Predators would more often feed on eggs, hatchlings, and juvenile sauropods, no matter which the species, and perhaps even very old or sick sauropods. However, in the growth of these sauropods, no matter whether they were Camarasaurus or any other species, they grew at a very fast rate, gaining anywhere from several thousand pounds a year upwards of 4,000 pounds a year. Now, it has been thought that dinosaurs were cold-blooded, but to sustain the growth rate that sauropods had, they wouldn't grow that fast if they were totally cold-blooded. Researchers happen to think that sauropods were more along the lines of a warm-blooded animal. You would need a warm-blooded animal to sustain the metabolism required for this rapid growth. So very much that goes different to thinking of other reptiles and other dinosaurs. Again, defense-wise, these dinosaurs, other sauropods, Camarasaurus, at some point in some dinosaurs were found scaly plates, and sometimes barbs or spines on the back of the neck, on their back and on flanks. It's thought that they could use these for defense as well as one good swat with the tail. It depends again on the species. I mentioned that Camarasaurus was 75 feet from head to tail and around 47 tons. That was mid-range, and also that was the weight and length of the largest of several species of Camarasaurus. the pronunciation again. Pick A or B. Overall, sorry, these dinosaurs, sauropods, gave rise to the titanosaurs, are the largest dinosaurs in existence. Titanosaurs became the largest animal to ever walk on the face of the earth. World's largest dinosaur. I'm excited. I hope you are too. First of all, the ones with peg-like teeth would strip the lead or whatever. They never, one thing I didn't bring up, sauropods did not chew the food they bit, whether it was leaves or twigs or branches, twigs or branches. They left all that work to the stomach, a very large stomach that maybe take up to 2 weeks to digest the food they ate. So, you know, certainly as herbivores, they would gain all the nutrients from all the various parts of that leaf. I would think that includes cellulose. So anyway, but the peg-like teeth were for those that stripped, and the spade-like teeth were those that just took the limb or the branch off the tree or the bush.
There was one other thing that I wanted to say, in terms of them being warm-blooded. We used to have a wonderful fossil in our collection that showed this. Animals, the dinosaurs that were, well, the argument to say that they were warm-blooded was the number of red blood cells in the bone marrow. And we did a wonderful, fossil that actually showed that, because cold-blooded animals do not have a lot of red blood cells in the marrow. So that was another
So
point.
they've done analyses of the fossilized bones, and they find that they're very much the same as mammal bones.
Thank you. Hi. So I'm going to talk about the Morrison Formation, and I just wanted to show you what the laminates are that go with that. So this is and some of these are in the manual, some of them aren't. So this is a picture just of the sedimentary layers, and then here's the map of the extent of the Morrison Formation. I don't think I put in the manual, just some plant fossils and actually insect and mollusks that were found in the Morrison Formation. And then on this side, this one is really cool. Fossil of a relative of the giant water bug, and tooth plates from a lungfish. And then here's your basic stratigraphy chart, and we'll have a different one too that's a little less detailed available as well. And then here's pictures of just what Camarasaurus looked like. And then here on the back of this one is a map showing where, this is not in the guide, where the 4 different species of Camarasaurs were. And on this side is the time, the layer that they were found in, which shows that they weren't all alive at the same time. And then dinosaur salad bar, basically. So this is what I think it looked like back in the late Jurassic and Morrison Formation. And then some just random pictures of plant groups that would have been alive. So the pteridophytes, the spore-bearing plants, and then two sheets of different types of conifers. So people can get an idea of what that is. And then our quarter scale model of Camarasaurus. So this is about 6 inches long. So quarter scale means that the skull was like 2 feet long, right? So times 4. And so think about how small that is for that giant animal. So, I mean, that gives you an idea. Okay, so I would like a volunteer to do a mock engagement with me. Anybody game? Okay, first hand. Yeah.
Are those laminated materials usually available on the cart?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And there's more for the other, there's more that I'm not showing that had to do with more specific Camarasaur stuff, and then Anne will have some that are for the whale comparison. So, hi, good morning.
Hi, I love dinosaurs.
Excellent, excellent. I'm so glad to hear it. Did you know that we had dinosaurs here in the United States?
Wait, really? I thought they were only in Africa.
No. And we had these ginormous dinosaurs that lived in the middle of the United States way long time ago. Here we go. Here's the map where they lived. If you've ever been to the southwest of the United States, that's where they live. So in this area right here. And it's called the Morrison Formation. And it used to be a low sloping floodplain. So there were mountains to the west and the rivers ran off the mountains and sort of trickled out across the floodplain. So there were trees that grew along the rivers, and then there were ferns that grew farther away from the rivers. So it was quite an interesting place back then. And not only did they find dinosaurs there, they found all kinds of other animals, including ones that indicate that there was plenty of water then. So here we have a giant water bug. This is a modern one, and this is a fossil of the one that they found in the Morrison Formation. And these are tooth plates of a lungfish. So we actually have a lungfish here in the Academy, which you can go see.
Where?
Down in the aquarium. Yeah. It's the oldest animal we have at the aquarium. So, yeah, so what do you think these dinosaurs ate? Do you think they were, to be so big, do you think they were carnivores or did they eat plants?
They had to have eaten a lot of meat and drank milk.
So that is a good guess, but they were actually herbivores, right? So one thing about the time that they lived was the late Jurassic. So which was about 155 to 145 million years ago. There was lots of CO2 in the air. So we know what that does, right? That makes a greenhouse effect. So temperatures were much higher. And so that sort of spurred on plant growth. So there was lots and lots of plants for them to eat. And here's a picture of what it might have looked like when they were alive. So it looks sort of like what you might think if you just glance at it, but when you look closely, you'll notice there's some kind of plants that are missing. There were no flowers then. Yeah, so flowers would not evolve until the next epoch in the Mesozoic, so the Cretaceous. So later sauropods would get to eat flowers, but not the ones in the late Jurassic. So here's some of the types of plants that were alive then. You probably recognize these, right? These are the ones that we still have around today. So club mosses, horsetails, ferns, right? All green, right? People even eat fiddlehead ferns, right? So we eat some of the food that the dinosaurs did. Here are some other, these are conifers. So you probably recognize them. Ginkgos, right? Ginkgos are the last of their line. There's only one species of them left, but in the Mesozoic, there were many, many species of ginkgos. And then this middle row, these are also not many of them left. And the bottom picture shows Welwitschia, which we actually have a model of in African Hall. So that group of plants was around during the Jurassic. And then the third row is cycads. And there's several of them still around today, but they were so prolific during that time. So in fact, we call, the vertebrate people call the Jurassic the age of the dinosaurs, but the plant people call it the age of cycads. So, and then on the back are tree plants that most everybody is familiar with, the conifers. So the Oricarias, which is the monkey puzzle tree. And there's actually one at the back walkway of the academy. And then the middle row is cypresses and sequoias. So yeah, sequoias. So so the sequoias, obviously, there's only 3 species of them left. And we have one of them, a big slice of one of them down in the giant woodland exhibit. And then and the third row then is the firs, pines and whatnot. And those are all these are all cone bearing, but those are the really familiar ones. So do you think, what kind of teeth do you think you would need to eat plants like this? You think they had like triangular serrated teeth, or dogs did not chew their food. They just they had teeth that were either peg-like, so they could strip off the leaves, like kind of like a rake, or they had spade-shaped teeth. I sort of think of them as garden shears that work this way, right? So they could nip off branches, right? And they would just swallow those whole.
And they didn't choke?
They did not choke. I know. I wondered this too, actually. I thought, how they do that? I guess a small head sort of, only allowed them to take small bites, but lots of small bites, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they ate lots and lots and lots of plants, and had a very slow digestive system. So it might take them 2 weeks to actually process their food. Yeah. So, is there anything else you want to know about the Morrison Formation, where they live, what they ate?
Are there still fossils discovered there today?
Yes. In fact, it is the location. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Dinosaur Wars. So back in the middle 1800s, paleontologists named Cope and Marsh, kind of unscrupulously, were sort of pitting themselves against each other to find the best fossils. And so, yeah, there is still research going on there today. So it still has many secrets left for us to find. So, thank you so much.
Sounds
for coming
cool.
by today.
Let's check out the lungfish.
Okay, so you get the idea. That was a little bit heavy on the exposition, explaining and not so much question, but I just wanted to show you how you could use the material. So does anybody have questions about this scale?
You mentioned there were no flowers.
Yes.
Are you only talking about the Morrison area, or is that a global observation?
Globally, so I would say that there probably were the very, very beginnings of angiosperms in the very late Jurassic, because we know by the Cretaceous they were already starting to radiate. But basically, you can say there weren't significant amounts of them, so that the dinosaurs would be eating them. So just to simplify things, I say that the angiosperms did not evolve until the Cretaceous, because essentially that's, they weren't around in any great numbers until then. And the ones that were we might not even recognize them as such. Okay.
Could you review the skull and things? I always get questions when I'm doing the big cat skull. What's this cavity for? What's this cavity for?
Thank you.
This is the nasal cavity.
Can you turn it so that we can
Yes.
see it? First?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yes.
There we go.
This is the nasal cavity. These are the eye orbits, and then these two are typical of, correct me if I say this wrong, of diapsids. They have this extra hole here. So does that help at all?
Is any of it for body temperature regulation? You think?
So I did not read that in anything that I read about. Did either of you read? If any of the holes in the skull were for body temperature regulation, did you read that anywhere? Yeah, I didn't read that anywhere. Terry?
part of the job of those air sacs, like in the neck, help thermoregulation to and body heat.
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
They were in the.
in the neck, yeah. You know, did this big hole up here for their nasal cavity act sort of like a turbinate in the nose? I don't know, right? Who knows? I don't know. There are no, we don't have turbinates in these guys, but you know, it's a big empty space, so, right?
And the teeth are pig-like.
Yeah, so I know. So no, in Camarasaurus, they're these spade-like, they look more peg-like in this, which is disappointing a little bit, but they were the spade-like with the sharp edge for biting off pieces of branch. Yeah. The Diplodocus and Apatosaurus had the peg-like teeth. But the Camarasaurus had that. Dale? Yeah.
Do these animals have tongues?
Oh, I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. I can't think of it. Well, I don't know why they wouldn't have. They had teeth, and I would guess so. Yeah, yeah,
Back in the throat if they're no chew.
yeah, yeah. I didn't see anything that said they didn't have Andy.
How are scientists able to determine the lifespans of dinosaurs?
Oh, I did read that, and I think it's in the manual, and okay, yes, microscopic analysis of the bones. So that is all I can tell you about that, but that is how they do it. It's not like rings or anything. It has something to do with.
Carbon dating, but it just seems like carbon dating, there's so much error that.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's it. They were too long ago, but I think they can look at like a slice of a bone and actually examine the cells in the bone and tell from that, but it isn't like rings or anything.
It's more a projection from the growth rate than anything else. So you look at the growth of the young animal and project from there, but we really don't have any
How much
sense of,
younger growth in younger?
I don't know.
Oh, don't know. Yeah. Terry? Yeah.
Let's say the teacher's guide to this exhibit states that there'll be a sample of both types of teeth for people to see and touch. Now, that guide was written several years ago, so but it said they're going to be there so you can see and touch them.
Okay, so Terry was just saying in the educator's guide from the American Museum of Natural History, there will be both kinds of sauropod teeth in the exhibit, which are touchable. So, Karen, yeah.
One more question, this one about teeth.
Uh-huh.
So does it work like a shark's teeth where there are teeth in the back of the front ones that are kind of turned over and then, or do they just pop out of the molar at some point?
So Karen was asking about how the teeth replacement worked. And what I read was they had, so depending on the sauropod, in the socket, there were like 3 to 5 backup teeth. So depending on the species, right? Camarasaurus had 3 in each socket. So as they were damaged, I don't know if it, I don't know if it took a couple months for the tooth to come in. I don't think it like sprang into place like a shark tooth, but they were there, so they could replace their teeth. And as each individual one was damaged, yeah.
Someplace in all my reading, I found a statement that said each of the species had only one kind of tooth.
That is correct. Yes.
Which I think is really important because we're used to having different shaped teeth for different purposes.
Yes. So Margaret was just saying, unlike mammals, right? We have different kinds of teeth in our mouth. So reptiles typically only have one shape, one type of tooth in the mouth. So while different sauropods had different shapes, each one only had one shape. So either peg or either spade bone. Yeah.
One more, and then we'll move on to the third
Okay.
portion.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Since they're eating very tough fibrous materials, okay, most herbivores have a multi-chambered stomach in order to digest that kind of food. But do we know anything more about the structure of the stomach?
So the question was about what was the digestion like for sauropods since they didn't chew? So, enormous stomach, only one. It was not gizzard-like, like birds. It was not muscular, so did not help grind the food. There has been some, yes, the gastrolith, so the grinding stones found in the right place with the skeleton. But they were not, they didn't have multiple stomachs and chew their cud like ruminants. They didn't have an elongated cecum like koalas do to digest bamboo. They just let it sit there and ferment for 2 weeks. Yeah, it's like a big compost bin in their stomach. So, yeah. Okay.
They said also that the reason it sat there like a big compost thing and it would break down very slowly, that the huge stomach also contributed to their size. But the huge stomach worked 2 ways. It made them need to be stronger legs and bigger body to hold this huge composting bin. But it also is one of the reasons why we've decided that they were not cold-blooded, that the stomach itself kept them warm by doing this work.
So Kay was just saying that she had read that having a large stomach was one reason why they were so large. You know, to support that large compost bin, they had to have stout legs, and also that all that fermentation going on there created a lot of heat, which is why we think they were end of.
No, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
The
I get the right one. Okay, and I think my time is up.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, there's one more, one very quick question from online folks, before we move on to Anne. What was the survival benefit of being big and having, what was the question earlier? For eating that way, for having that compost heap type digestion, or do we not know?
So I have to say I don't know exactly. It allowed them probably to grow really quickly, which made them too big for predators to tackle, like the big theropod dinosaurs of the time. But other than that, I don't know. So sorry, I can't answer that in a better way. Hopefully the exhibit will have information on that, right, from the experts, not from me. Okay.
All right, thank you.
It's possible that given enough food and enough territory, animals will just grow as big as they can, as big as their shape will sustain. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about whales.
In their habitat, because we know.
Right, exactly. So they took all my, up here, hang on just a second while I put this down. And not to fall on it. Okay, so can you all hear me without this? No. Okay, all right. I'm used to teaching and not talking and talking with my hands. Okay, so a lot of you have done whales.
Hold that closer to.
Okay. And then not shout. And a lot of you have done whales or things for the giants exhibit. So you know about whales. I'm not going to tell you about the blue whale too much. I mean, you know that they're huge. So in terms of living large and what you can do for engagements, I came up with 3 different perspectives. If you want to talk about being large and bring in the whale and the dinosaur. This is something that you would certainly be able to use after the dinosaurs are gone. And I think kids are going to be very interested. So first of all, thinking about large, and we just had a conversation about the dinosaurs and why they were so large, that big stomach. Okay, so why is the blue whale so large? I really had trouble asking questions because I'm so deaf. It's going to be hard for me to hear.
It's okay, I forgot mine today. The Isthmus of Panama, when that piece of land that has now been dug out and it's now open. But before the Isthmus of Panama was in place, it was open. So there was water transfer from the Atlantic to the Pacific.
Okay,
Okay, when it closed up and before we got the Panama Canal, there was now a big change because the
right,
Pacific stayed colder and the Atlantic was warmer.
Right.
Well, one of the hallmarks of the really cold water in the Pacific is a phenomena we call upwelling.
okay.
And
So,
that made it colder. And it also upwelling brings up incredibly large amounts of food, nutrition. So this is really the first step in the blue whales getting really big was Panama closing up. More upwelling in the Pacific, more nutrients and eaters of the nutrients.
okay, so the answer to the question is basically geology. Okay, changes in the Earth's surface. And if you're going to talk about dinosaurs, one of the things that I found really interesting was looking at how the surface of the Earth has changed over millions and millions of years. When you're talking about the Morrison Formation, take a look, see if you can find some pictures of what it actually looked like, what the Earth looked like when these animals were roaming the Earth. In the United States, California didn't exist. So there have been some really important changes. So changes in the ocean allowed for colder water, upwelling, feeding phytoplankton, feeding the krill. And as time came about, the whales shifted from eating something else to eating these little teeny weeny things and finding there were lots and lots of them. One of the things I did that I thought was interesting, and it didn't end up in the list of references. I read an article about the development of baleen because I've always wondered, where did it come from? So someone has done research on fetal minke whales. That's a baleen, a smaller baleen whale. And what they discovered was that in the fetus, there are still little teeth. And then as the fetus develops, the teeth disappear. And from the back of the jaw, you get a ridge that grows towards the front. And that's where the baleen comes down from that. So somehow the beard got inside the mouth. I mean, there's keratin is what it's made of. So it's basically sort of a hair thing. Over millions and millions of years, this developed in conjunction with the rise of this type of food. Okay. Another thing that happens as the whale develops into the blue whale is the shape of the head changes. So in this article, they also talk about the fact that the head gets longer. So when you're comparing the Camarasaurus with its little tiny head, this is not a very good model of a blue whale because it's not to scale. Otherwise, it would be huge, right? It would be about this long. Okay, blue whales weigh 3 to 4 times as much as the dinosaur. They're not as long. Okay, they're 80 to up to 110 feet, they say. No one's quite sure about that measurement. Somewhere between 80 and 100 feet. Our blue whale is 81 feet. Okay, the skeleton of the blue whale that we have hanging is 81 feet long. So the head of the Camarasaurus is very small. The head of the blue whale is about 1/3 of the body. And the pleats go all the way to the belly button. That's the sort of thing that kids love. You know, how wide can you open your mouth? What if you had to, when I'm talking about snakes, I love telling the kids, what if you had to eat a Big Mac without taking a bite and without chewing? Okay, they love that kind of thing. It has to do with food. The differences with the sauropod then, okay, large head for the whale, okay, huge mouth, a smaller digestive tract because they're eating protein. So they don't need that big stomach, okay? How about teeth? We've had a lot of questions about Camarasaurus teeth. Any teeth? No, not anymore, right? The fetus, I don't know about blue whales. I'm not sure anybody's done that research, but they're in the fetal whale, there might be teeth, okay? And another thing is we talked about air sacs in the neck and how difficult it is for an animal this size to breathe. Okay, just trying to get the air into your lungs. They have these air sacs in their neck. Birds have that too, because they descended from dinosaurs. But the whale can stay underwater for 15 minutes. Another thing about the blue whale is that the blowholes in that whole process of the head getting longer, the blowholes are way on the back of the head. If you look at an orca, the blowholes are right on the top of the head. So as the baleen whale's head gets longer, the nose goes further back. It's really kind of awkward. Okay, so one thing you can then talk about is the difference in big, what it means, okay? Another thing you can talk about are the advantages and disadvantages of size. Someone asked a question about why did the dinosaurs get that big? Well, one answer is probably because they could. They got as big as they could get, and then they would have mobility problems. They already have mobility problems. Does this animal have mobility problems? No. Okay. The whales are excellent swimmers. They migrate long distances. Some of the longest distances that mammals migrate are the blue whales. They're sleek and very fast. When they're lunging, they can go almost up to 35 miles an hour, but normally they travel at about 6 to 7 miles an hour. Very relaxed, no problem. Okay. So the sauropod needed warm weather, lots of plants. Imagine how many plants it had to eat just to stay alive. An elephant eats, I've forgotten how many bushels full of greenery just to stay alive. Elephants have probably reached their maximum size in terms of food availability and mobility. Those two things are things that you need to think about when you're talking about size. So the largest animal on the planet ever, the blue whale, exists only in water. What would happen to a blue whale if you put it on land? It would suffocate. It would die right away, right? Even though the blowhole is right up here, and it wouldn't have any trouble getting air, it wouldn't be able to breathe, and it wouldn't be able to move. Okay, so then the third thing is the relationship between the animal and its environment. We've already talked a little bit about that, okay? You need certain conditions for an animal to get this big. You have to have lots of the right kind of food. Most of these animals are specialists. One of the articles I read about the blue whale points out that unfortunately, blue whales are highly specialized, both in the environment they need and the food. One of the reasons they migrate is they have to go where the krill are. And the krill are in cold water during certain seasons of the year. The whales remember where they have to go, but they migrate long distances looking for food. So that's just probably most of what you might need to talk about the whale. We have baleen. There's a large piece of blue whale baleen. And this is interesting. The fringe is missing. But if you hold it like that, you get a sense of how big the mouth is. Right? Pretty big. This is gray whale. The gray whales are different. Okay. They feed off the bottom. The gray whale lunges down and scrapes sand and whatever's in there and then filters it out. One thing that in the material, it talks about blue whales as being filter feeders. They're not filter feeders, okay? They push the water out. They're not filtering food out of the water. They're lunging and grabbing something. They're basically carnivores. Filter feeders are things like clams that are basically pulling water in and snatching bits of stuff out of the water. So try not to, I don't want anybody to make that mistake. So other large animals, you can always ask your visitors about other large animals they can think of, what might limit the size of those animals, like a hippopotamus, giraffe, other large animals, elephants, giraffes, rhinoceros, hippopotamus, polar bears. A lot of them, like polar bears, are highly specialized and probably going to disappear. So in terms of getting to the environment and climate change, warming water, disappearance of krill, we have ship strikes and noise that are also problems for blue whales. Anybody else already, if you read anything about the whales, you're going to find out all about that stuff. Okay, any other? I would ask for questions I'm probably not going to be able to hear.
You're gonna comment on the advantages of being big?
Okay, well, the advantages of being big are usually the lack of predators. Okay, most of us don't get up in the morning and say, what's gonna try to eat me today? That's another thing I'd say to the kids, what tried to eat you today on the way to school? Nothing, right? So if you're big enough, nothing bothers you. A whale calf is already 2 tons, but the orcas will get together and kill one. So it's in the ocean where everything eats everything else, being big is an advantage. And it was probably also an advantage for the sauropods. One of the things I learned recently is that Sue, the big Tyrannosaurus Rex that was discovered in Montana, she had several broken ribs. And so this tail, you know, I think it was probably used for protection of the young. The young stayed with the old, but a typical Camarasaurus egg was about the size of a soccer ball. Okay. I guess we have a little bit of time for questions unless we want to,
Just a few minutes.
just a few minutes. So you can ask questions and the one of us that has the answer will respond. Yeah.
I actually have a question for Métis.
Okay.
You're all off the hook.
Yes.
Given that we're going to probably possibly be using baleen in this engagement, and that a lot of people use baleen in giants of land and sea, is it possible that we could get some more baleen, please?
Potentially, that's something that that we can definitely look into. In the meantime, we'll borrow some from the whale engagement for the time being, since there's a lot in there.
So I grabbed the single plate of blue whale baleen and left the double plate for the whale people. And also the sort of medium-sized gray whale baleen.
Right.
So there's still 2 pieces of gray in that closet. So that's how we're solving that problem at the moment.
Yes, so that will, so yeah, so sharing will tide us over for now. That's something that we can look into for sure.
So I understand the Morrison Formation was rich in sauropods, but where else in the United States have they been found?
Sauropods?
Yes.
I think most of the fossils that have been found in the Morris Formation. Okay, which the Rocky Mountains didn't exist. They were rising at the time, so it sloped gradually down to the northeast, and you got a lot of the rain would hit the mountains, and then there was a lot of water there.
Well, I guess where I was thinking was is in your prospectus that there's a map of the United States and where the Morrison Formation overlays.
Right.
And so I can imagine some kid asking you where else in the United States where they found it, and your answer is
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that there's another place in the United States that's known for fossils, but there are fossils kind of all over the country.
right, but of this particular.
Yeah, they've almost all been found in the Morrison Formation as well, you know, as.
I'll try and answer that question. Yeah.
Just have 2 more minutes.
Oh, okay.
But if they go
Yeah.
to the strata that's east of that area is older, some different kind of area.
Right, there aren't any Tyrannosaurus Rex and Tyrannosaurus fossils in the Morrison Formation because it's too old. Okay, there weren't any,
It's too young.
it's too young.
Okay, 2 more, and then we'll start moving over. But yes.
But where are these biopack materials going to be kept?
The biofact materials are, all the materials will be with the engagement itself, and the guide as well
Which
will
will be
be.
kept where?
It will be in the.
In the McCosker cabinet, so, yeah, you know,
McCosker
we're not-
cabinet.
yeah, in the one where the whale baleen is right now. Yeah, we'll have to rearrange some things, but that's where.
And yes, one more.
So yeah, with the baleen, the blue whale baleen, since it really has almost none of the bristles, I think it's confusing for the guests. So do we have a good laminated picture of gray whale baleen showing, I mean, not gray whale, the blue whale baleen showing all the bristles?
That would be good if we could find one. Yeah, we'll look for one.
We can add one for sure.
Yeah,
to-
it doesn't really show. We just have,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, we can get a 11 by 17 image of a blue whale series.
The interesting thing about this one piece is it's huge. It's missing the fringe, but
Right.
it's just scary huge.
No, it's good
Because
to have.
you can talk about the blue whale and wave around this little tiny model. But the blue whale part is as big as a car, you know, so it's hard to give people, even these two, I mean, the whale would be.
So
that's bigger than.
So that's one thing we didn't talk about is where you might do this. So under the blue whale skull is that prime territory. You can then point, oh, and by the way, the sauropod exhibit is right up there on the balcony. So, you know, you'll figure out other places that are good too.
Yeah, there's several potential locations. Definitely underneath the blue whale is one good one, on the balcony, right outside, on the second floor balcony, right outside the dinosaur exhibit itself. Is a great place, I think, because you have the exhibit in front of you and you can still point to the blue whale that's hanging right behind you. So you get a little bit of both. I will point out once we walk into the exhibit that there are some potential locations you can be in there as well. It is a little bit darker, so we'll leave that up to your to your preferences. It is 11 right now, so I really appreciate all the questions, but definitely please keep them and send them to them. Send them to us rather, so that we can compile them and send it to the prelim. Perfect. For everyone, once again, please take a few minutes break. Use the restroom if you need to, and we will meet down on the second level, right outside the dinosaur exhibit. Thank you very much. And for folks online, thank you for joining us today. And you can see the exhibit after it is open. Thank you.
Thanks, Meiji. Thanks, everyone online.